All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you are in. We're so excited you're here, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict live.
Live.
Live. Here is Friday again. Where time goes. I just can't believe it, Ross. It was just like last week.
And so much has happened
Yeah.
this week.
Is the Earth spinning faster?
It must be.
I mean, like the week went by so fast.
In
So
physics, there's this thing called time dilation,
uh,
where things can happen faster because time moves faster.
it is. I feel time is really moving faster. So
Oh, I think so too.
anyway, we are so excited to be here. First, we want to thank
we
our
want to thank you for watching. We'd like to thank you for subscribing. We are inching closer and closer to
70 million.
It's kind of slow inch.
Well, actually, it is moving up a little bit, but
Yeah.
hey, it is what it is. So for you, if you happen to just first time, whatever, consider subscribing to our channel. So help us out here. So, but also we take this opportunity to thank our members. So for those who do not know, we do have a membership. Check it out. It's on geopoliticsinconflict.com. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we're doing a presentation for our members.
That's correct.
About the hypersonic, where we're going to go a little bit into more depth about
a little bit, a lot more in depth.
Yeah.
There's some very powerful implications to that thing.
Exactly. So just consider, check out our membership. You will find it very, very interesting because it's a platform where we can discuss issues in more depth. We can also have the Q&As because we can answer all the, we get a lot of questions. You guys know all this. We can just answer all of them because we do have to go and do the research. There's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes. It's just, you understand how these things work. But for the members, that's why we have that membership. So check it out, and I'm sure you'll be pleased with it. So
we got a bunch of hot topics.
Yes, we do. Let's get on it so we can have conversation with our viewers.
This is a really big one. The Chinese government has told its citizens to stock up on supplies.
Well, indeed, Ross, that one, this article mentioned that one. So they came up from the Commerce Ministry, which was posted the notes for it. There are two sides to the arguments. Some have said, when I say some in the Western world, said, "Oh, China is preparing for a war with Taiwan." Okay, maybe not. The other arguments to it is China wants to have its citizens prepared for the pandemic
if it comes back again. They want their citizens to be well. What a concept!
Yeah. So I don't buy the argument that the West is making about, China's preparing for war and all that stuff. So
more hot air, and we've certainly seen a lot of that in the last week.
Exactly.
Iran says it prevented the United States from stealing oil in the Persian Gulf.
I know the one in Oman, in the Gulf of Oman, which is close by the Persian Gulf there. That has to do with one article that I came across. It stated that the U.S. wants to steal the oil tanker worth over $40 million or something like that one. So Iranians, and I did see the images of the Iranian special ops, descending from the helicopter through the ropes and taking over. So they took the oil tanker back and moved it towards their direction, whatever that was supposed to go.
EU Parliament members visiting Taiwan.
Yeah, I was very surprised at this one here, Ross, because it's the first time that this delegation is making a trip. The question is, who's paying for the trip? That's one. But second is, who's heading the delegation? Well, what I found out is one particular guy. He's a French guy by the name Raphael Glucksmann. This Glucksmann guy, he is known for his hard line towards China. And of course, he was the one behind pushing the EU to impose sanctions on China. China retaliated by imposing sanctions on him. So that's why he went to Taiwan and saying, well, we are with the Taiwan sovereignty, whatever, adding fuel to the fire. But the question that I would ask, and I want you guys to think about it, is who's funding the trip? Follow the money.
The news behind the news and what's really going on.
Exactly.
The United States intelligence apparatus could lose thousands of officers.
Indeed, Ross. And this one has to do with government pandemic restrictions or mandates, whatever you want to call it. So, which will be a big loss. That will be a big blow to the US if those intelligence officers. We're talking about thousands that they don't want this kind of restrictions or whatever, and the U.S. government will suffer tremendously. As a matter of fact, some military and special ops, they already left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they said heck with this restrictions or whatever that is, like, and they are absolutely right. Since when the government has to dictate what you do with your body? So it's common sense. So,
well, we're seeing individual organizations, airlines, and so on. They're really getting their comeuppance here in terms of let's impose things on people.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, it's not going to work. We're not going to become another Australia.
Oh, God forbid.
Oh, yeah.
Clashes between protesters opposed to the election results, security forces in Baghdad, and reports of 2 deaths.
In Iraq, yes, the elections. But here is why I argued this, Ross, back in 2014 or 13. I made the argument right after the Arab Spring, and my argument was, and I still stand by my argument, is that there will never be a democracy in the Arab world. Why? Because the foundation doesn't exist. The separation between church and state,
right.
In this case, the mosque and the religion, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't exist there. And for the West to be saying, oh, the Arab world is moving into democracy and all that, it's nonsense. And those demonstrations now in Iraq is a proof of that. There will never be democracy in the Middle East. So the best thing we can do is leave them alone. They can live life according to what they want.
You mean respect their sovereignty, respect their traditions?
That's exactly what I meant.
Respect their culture.
You're right, Ross.
Oh, we can't do that.
You're right.
Financial Times, artificial intelligence risks unprecedented in history.
Well, this one came out, by the way, guys, just this morning. I read the article, and it was, guess who stated that? None other than Henry Kissinger.
Oh,
somebody who understands at least where China's coming from. And his argument is to the West or to the US, he said, you better, it's exactly what we've been arguing.
Yeah.
You better sit down with China and communicate. Because this, I think, and this is my personal opinion, guys, I think where Henry Kissinger was coming from is that he understood that China has already made strides in the AI field. I remember our conversation yesterday with our guest.
Yes.
Which, by the way, guys, we're going to release that video soon, whenever, next week.
Just an aside on that.
Yeah.
The interview is an hour long, and every minute of it is power-packed. So if you have the time and energy and interest, watch the whole thing. It is so good.
Yeah, it's the idea of this AI thing, and that is where Henry Kissinger was coming from. So, and it's a good point. I mean, we've been arguing for that. It is time for the United States to sit down with China and talk with respect.
Yes.
Maintain, because Chinese also have their own interests they have to protect. It's just common sense. So,
oil prices rise after OPEC Plus rejects the U.S. call to increase supplies.
This is just happened this morning. Remember, I'm sure you guys saw the breaking news yesterday we did about the OPEC Plus rejecting the U.S. request. Well, this morning, prices went up by 1%. That tells you right there how much now the OPEC and OPEC Plus, they're realizing, we got the U.S. by the, you finish the sentence.
You finish it, right.
So that is where things are. And we look at it in a way, it's not a laughing matter because it's coming around the holidays. Can you imagine how it's going to be for families who are really on a tight budget?
Well, what we're seeing is astronomical inflation, whether anyone's claiming it or not.
Yeah.
But you go shopping and you see it. You go to the gas station, you see it. You go to your favorite restaurant, you go, whoa, is this a big shock?
Exactly. But this one here, Russ, the question now becomes is, should the U.S. tap into its strategic oil reserves? And to me, that's a common question. Why do we have the reserves for?
Yeah.
Some say, well, this is not an emergency. It's like, well, when? So second argument was about why not build our own refineries?
It almost makes no sense to not do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. As I argued before us, you move $100 billion from the defense budget.
You build 10 refineries.
Yeah, it's common sense. This is not some mysterious thing, because it gets under my skin for realizing that sometimes you can find solutions, but because the damn politics, they are playing with people's lives. Because
Right.
this increase in oil impacts families, average families, and not here in the US, but around the world.
You and I say it almost every show about how many families are living paycheck to paycheck. And what we're seeing is the diminishing of the quality of life of the middle class and lower class people.
Yeah.
And for government policy, it's not going to stop.
No. And we all know how conditions are in the US. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It's just the government it's not being honest and forthright with the American people.
Well, can I bring up the topic of the day?
Sure, sure.
The Chinese space station and the US not included.
That's correct. Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today, guys, about the China space station and what does it mean for the future, whether cooperation or rivalry between China and the US. And as always, guys, once we finish the conversation, we'll open up the floor for your questions. Just please make sure to put questions so we know it is question, not statements, and we go from there. So,
as always, there's
Yeah.
news behind the news.
Indeed.
And if you just pay attention to the headlines, you can't really understand what's going on.
No, as a matter of fact, the shocking, surprising that I came across was none other than the statement by the director of NASA here in the US saying that maybe we ought to sit down and have a talk with Chinese. I was shocked. I was really shocked because they are realizing where this is headed. Well, what's at the core of the argument has to do with not a research, but rather what came out from what China has done. Well, what China did was they selected some countries. Okay.
And those countries are surprising which ones they picked.
Yes. Yeah. They selected some countries to participate into this program. And in these countries, including countries like, believe it or not, beside the developed one, like Peru. Yeah, China considered the Peru. Well, we all know Peru has nothing to do, but that's not the point. The point is, when you compare what China is doing or wants to do versus what the ISS, the International Space Station
Right.
that is under the US, who's in the ISS? Only developed countries.
And with Shenzhou, they opened it up to almost everyone in the world if you've got a good science project.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, to us, it's mentioned that the 16 countries that's been invited, over 9 projects they've been working on, including as well U.S. allies such as Germany,
Yeah.
France, Italy, and even the unfriendly Japan.
Which is really amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the animosity between those two is really great.
Yeah, Japan and India. So this is the idea of, makes you wonder, is China thinking about inclusivity of including whomever wants to participate? But here is the reason why they turned away the US. There are some articles saying, oh, the Chinese being this and that, but they didn't disclose the core issue. And the core issue, and I am going to state it here so as to reference it, it's because the selection process, and it stated this, that the Chinese officials have never excluded any country from its space station cooperation project. They just have a set of strict selection criteria. The United States didn't meet that criteria.
That's mostly believable.
Yeah.
Although there might be other factors,
yeah,
but mostly it's believable.
But would you blame them for that?
Not at all.
If you, for example, you are the director of a research lab, okay, and I approach you by saying, Ross, I would like to be part of your project. You say, sure, but let me take a look, see what your criteria and what your proficiency into this, and you take a look and you realize, well, you don't meet the standards.
Yeah.
Why would you want to take me with your lab or be part of your lab project? You're going to say no. This is exactly what China has done.
As part of what President Xi is all about is inclusive. We want to include everyone in world prosperity.
Exactly. Well, this is where the China is saying that, and I quote here, China is doing this based on the UN, or what I stated here, based on the UN basic principle of using outer space for peaceful purposes, having a clear scientific purpose that promotes the progress of related science and technology fields, having a feasible technical plan and sound engineering capabilities as not to pose a threat to the space station, and being able to bear the cost of the project's research and development on their own. This is what China is requesting from some other countries. Yeah, the question, when if we are being logic here, and you guys know us by now, we stand for the truth. We don't sugarcoat it. So the question about Peru being there,
right?
Yeah, will Peru meet the standards? They might not, but at the same time, could China be thinking in terms of how about giving an opportunity to a country like that to develop?
Yes,
that's the way I will explain it. That's the way I will think about it. So,
and what we don't know is how much are the Chinese scientists willing to help them. We just don't have any information about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it won't be disclosed here.
Right.
The Western media is not going to disclose that. But the point in all this, because just in case you guys come across some articles, they're going to be trying to paint the picture as, oh, the Chinese refused the Americans. Not necessarily. It was the same argument that was made about the China not being in the ISS.
Right. The public statement is China didn't even apply. And so they weren't rejected. They just never applied.
That's what they said.
That's what
it
they
was
said.
Not a public sort of disclosed openly.
Right.
So the idea of for that one was did China apply for that one? Well, to me, it was one thing that I wasn't sure of that, whether they applied or not. But the one thing that is certain has to do with the Congress bill that passed in 2011, which basically redirect NASA not to allow the participation of China. What does it mean? It's a straightforward.
Yeah, they're excluding China from the
and
International
that's
Space
why.
Station.
So this is what prompted, I believe, China to go ahead and build its own. So the question that all of us needs to be thinking in terms of, because China is moving at a lightning speed.
Right.
Regarding, as a matter of fact, just FYI for you guys to know, that space station, China space stations, will be fully operational by next year, by February, if I'm not mistaken.
And my understanding is it's good for 2 years, something like that.
Or more. What's going to happen with the ISS? ISS is going to expire in 2024. Russia has already left. Which has not been disclosed. Russia has already left the station. So the question, the ISS, the question becomes now, who's going to be taking U.S. astronauts over? This is where Elon Musk comes in with his.
So there's that hope that the private sector in the United States or worldwide can come up with the booster rockets to get the space station up there. But right now, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But the only people doing it the only people who have the rockets are the Chinese and the Russians.
You're absolutely correct, Ross. And the question that's going to become now is whether this is going to lead to either cooperation or rivalry between the U.S. and China. Mind you that China, and again, we are not defending China. We're saying what is factual regarding the artificial intelligence, because this in the space program, AI is going to play a major role into moving that forward. Where this is going to go is anybody's guess. My thinking is there is a lot out there we don't know. We kind of close in our mind thinking that we are this highly mighty. We are nothing in comparison to what exists in the universe. And we're not going to get into it. It is. I find it very arrogant of some of us to think we are the only intelligence being in this universe. I found it very pathetic for us to be even thinking or considering we are the only smartest entity in this universe.
Well, let's take it closer to home. America. Some people in the U.S. government are so arrogant they think that only America can produce this stuff.
Yeah, it's just the idea of universe is vast. There are other civilizations out there, and I don't know if some of you guys been aware of the type of civilizations that exist type 1, type 2, and type 3, without going into more details into this. It's just the fact that it's obvious to the, if you just take a step back and think, how can this universe, whatever way you define it, exist? And if we think we the only entity exist in it, that just doesn't make any sense. Just doesn't make any sense. So my hope, and this is a personal, my hope is that this China steps into the space could pave the way for us to understand our place in the universe. That's really what my hope is.
Yes.
Of course, you're going to be thinking in terms of the military dimensions to space, which there are some. You're going to be thinking in terms of this rivalry. Of course, it's going to exist. But also, we have to think on the positive side, what's in it for humanity as a whole? That's what I'm thinking. Because, as we said at the beginning, Ross, time is passing by so fast. I'm personally, and I speak for myself, I'm realizing the week now goes by so fast. Then I found myself asking questions. What am I doing here?
What every human being should be asking themselves, what am I here to do? Why am I here?
Yeah. So why this animosity? Why this, hatred? Why can people just exist in peace, live in peace? For all of us to spend whatever time we are given on this earth before we move on to a different dimensions. Why this hostility? What for? If only, and this is where I see the idea of just to take it back to the oil conversation. And like when we say, well, we can have, take money out of the Department of Defense, 100 billion, put it for refineries, build the damn refineries so you can help people here and alleviate the hardships on American families or around the world for that matter. Live in peace and allow others to live.
Well, what about removing some sanctions to allow the free flow of oil from places like Venezuela?
Yeah, it just, which has massive oil. Iran has massive oil reserves and so forth. So you start to think in terms, when we put ourselves in this universe per se and realize we are this minute, they are this tiny, and we think, I don't know how people can be rationalizing their existence without even asking themselves, what are we here for? So
are you familiar with the concept of groupthink?
No, Ross. I don't.
Basically, what it is we only talk to each other. We're in a small group, we talk to each other, and we don't allow outside information in. And whatever conclusions we come to, whether they're absolutely brilliant or absolutely nutty, we all agree on it, and we take action. That's groupthink, as opposed to individuals evaluating. By the way, that's what we offer you. Evaluate for yourself as an individual. Yeah. And so we see preposterous things happening in the world based on groupthink.
Yeah, and to me, that's, we all humans. We all, regardless of what your ethnicity is, regardless of what your religion is, regardless of what political orientation. I always think of it in terms of when you meet someone, just look at him or her as a human being, no more, no less. The identity, the ethnicity, those are just labels we put in.
Right.
Look at him or her as a human being, no more, no less. And this way, at least, we change a little bit of our thinking, and we can move on. And this is the whole reason, guys, why we're doing what we're doing here, because we are hoping to promote this peaceful thinking that some knuckleheads in Washington needs to get it into their head by sitting down and have an open conversation with the Chinese, with the Russians, with the Venezuelans, with whomever, because it will benefit all of us, the world, not just one nation or one ethnicity over another. Because there is no, what makes me better than you? What makes you better than me? None. You're going to evaluate somebody based on his or her mental capabilities. In other words, what he or she can contribute to society, what he or she can contribute to humanity. No more, no less.
Exactly.
That's the way I think about it. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. So.
And the space station is a perfect opportunity to begin that conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is where I found myself recently thinking. I've really been thinking a lot about what am I doing here? Maybe because I'm getting older. I don't know.
Well, one of the things you're up to is let's get information to people so they can at least have good information to make decisions by.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. That's what we stand for, because we want to bring you the facts, the information, and just you decide what you want to do with it. Because that just, to me personally, I don't speak for Russ. Russ can speak for himself. But I feel, okay, you acquire some knowledge, whatever. Then what am I to do with it? Sit on it? What's the point? If you couldn't share it with humanity, doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. If I have information or knowledge that could be of benefit to you, then what's the point? And I couldn't share it, or I didn't want to share it. What's the point? That'll become what they call, as I always name those idiot savants. Here they are with this massive knowledge. Then what's the point? Because they're thinking of themselves as highly mighty, when it's not supposed to be. You help your fellow citizen, doesn't matter, or fellow human being for that matter. So that's my philosophical conversation for the day, and I'm done talking about it. But on a serious note, I do think on these issues, because I'm just seeing personally, as geopolitical analyst, I'm seeing where the trends are going, where things are going, and then I go in the right directions. Because at some point, we're gonna have somebody has to sort of put a break to all this and said, hold on a second, can't be going like this. Can't be alienating countries. You can't be sanctioning countries. You can't be just promoting whatever. At some point, we're going to have to say, how about if we pause, sit down and talk, have an open conversation, an honest one.
Right.
Where I respect your interest while you're respecting mine. We will disagree, of course. That's normal.
Well, if each person is to be looking out for their own best interest, there's going to be some conflicts, but there has to be points of coming together. Now we take that on an international level. Should the governments of each country be looking out for their citizens first? Well, we think so.
Yeah, they ought to. So there's nothing wrong with that.
But then where's the common ground, and where do we come together to make it better for everyone?
Exactly. So should we open it for questions? Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth helping us out with all this stuff here, guys. So we'll open the floor if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth will make that screen bigger for you.
This is the first question because I think it's really important to answer this.
Oh, that's Beryakov.
Beryakov. With these inflations hurting Americans, why there is no protest from the people? Isn't this weird? Yes.
Yeah, it is weird. And here's the thing, Beryakov, and to all of you. We're going to have an interview this afternoon with the guest. And again, we don't want to disclose the name. The one thing that I want you guys to know, so you can look out for this video next week, is that this individual is an economist, is an investor. He understands the financial market inside out, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. And one of the things we're going to be addressing with him is the inflation, because the government here in the United States is lying about the numbers. They are saying, well, for the next quarter, we want to maintain. This is based on what Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, stated, and I quote, we want to keep the inflation at 2%. You and I know it's not the truth. Prices are going up so high here in the US. At some point, people is not going to be able to afford the basics. And you all know what happened with that. So, of course, we all wonder, what's wrong with people? Are they like being numb? Because they don't understand. The answer to that, Beryakov, is they don't understand that the government is for people, by the people. They don't understand that concept. Till they understand that, then they will know what to do peacefully.
And there also are protests all over the country.
Yeah, we want to mention that.
Yeah.
We have protests from virtually all over the country, and they're big protests.
It just
they
don't.
talking about that.
And the people are pushing back against mandates and a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
Saying that things like the government does not represent us, and they're putting surprising people into office.
Yeah, it just gonna have to get louder and louder, and I think it will, because this is cannot be sustained forever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what's going on in Switzerland, in France, in Holland, with all the protests that's taking place over, because they are saying no, the government has no right whatsoever to dictate, for us in America, not everybody, of course, but we are very easily distracted because the government find it convenience. I have to keep your attention on this, but not this.
Right.
The reason being, because if you as a citizen start to think, you're going to become a threat.
Clearly.
Yeah. And there is nothing worse than to the government than a citizen becoming well informed. That is the biggest fear the government has. So. All right, next question.
Gunther, will Sharia ever be divorced from politics? This has implications for Xinjiang.
No. This has no. Those are two separate topics. It's kind of, this will apply to certain countries in the Middle East, but even with that, it's their system, how it is set up. So usually you will hear that term here in the West, but it will have no weight whatsoever, because the system in the United States, or the West for that matter, is the separation between church and state. So it's not going to bear any weight whatsoever, whether in Xinjiang, whatever area that is. It's not going to bear any weight on it. Next question.
YT.
Good to see you, YT.
Isn't it illegal for the U.S. to work with China on space technology?
No, it's not illegal. It is not illegal. Where the challenge is how, this is one thing most Americans do not understand. Usually when a bill is written, it's the language of the bill. As a matter of fact, there is one particular entity inside Congress called the conference. Usually its sole purpose is to water the language for a bill according to whatever they want. So it is not illegal. Why China turned the US away is because the US didn't meet the standards for China. Is this illegal? No, it's not. In my opinion, if you want to maintain a high standard, a high quality in research or whatever that is, you're going to require or request that you meet those specific standards. The United States didn't meet that on its research. The project they did. There were 9 projects, as we mentioned earlier. The US didn't meet that standard. China said, sorry, because this is not about just having money. It's about having the intellectual capabilities. That doesn't mean US maybe can get there, maybe not, but that is the reason why China has turned away the US, is because the United States didn't meet the criteria for what China wants.
Harry Smith.
Good to see you, Harry Smith.
You think it'll be China that invents the next major energy breakthrough in time, so we can stop destroying the world? Aren't they basically the only ones actually doing research?
Actually, I concur with your
I do too.
thinking. Yeah, it is possibility, because China is already working on a nuclear. I know France is already ahead. You think of certain other countries, but China's thinking in terms of, he was one of our viewers who shared the information with us. This is why I like our viewers, for the sense that, we learn from them as well. And he mentioned something about, he or she, I can't tell, of course, because of the screen name. What it was mentioned about using the sun. This particular technology that China's working on is far hotter than the sun. So which means the energy. I do believe China could have a breakthrough faster than other countries, when you consider how many they graduate from their from the universities.
1 million a year.
Well, that's what our guest said yesterday, remember?
And one of the things that we surfaced, I think it was yesterday, was recently the Chinese moved from 80% coal to 57%, and they're on their way down in terms of the percentage of energy being produced from coal. And what's making up the difference is green energy.
Yeah.
So next question.
All right, next one.
KK,
KK, yeah, good to see you.
is there a law imposed by U.S. Congress to ban NASA's cooperation with China Space Agency that is the main cause for U.S. exclusion from the Chinese space station?
No, it's not a law. The law was in reverse back in 2011. And the law, the legislator in Congress, to my knowledge, based on what I read, indicated that it directs NASA or the ISS, because remember, ISS is under the U.S. authority, banning China from cooperating or being part of any projects in the ISS. So it's not the other way around. That's what it was back then to 11. For this one here is that China turned the U.S. away because it did not meet the standards for certain research and so forth. So there is no law, to my knowledge, that's been passed that says as of today. So. Naaman, good to see you, Naaman.
When will the U.S. concede that it is not the unipower in the world, and how far it is willing to take this issue?
That is a great question. This falls within truly the concept, not the concept, but the reality of the shifting geopolitical landscape. We are, or we have been for the last 6 or 7 years, I almost go as far as a decade. We've been moving away from a unipolar to a multipolar system. The United States, of course, they won't want to admit that one, and they won't accept it, and they're going to fight it back by any means, rest assured. But the world has already been shifted towards that. And the indication for that is this is where you see those changes taking place. For example, the emerging alliances. Yes, China and Russia always conduct, for example, military joint exercises, but now they are moving on a much larger scale. For example, the investments in the Arctic,
right,
the joint operations between the two. You think about in Africa, for example. You think about Central Asia. The world is moving. Even the European Union right now, they are considering their own foreign policy that is divorced or apart from what the United States does. So that tells you right there how the world is moving into a different direction altogether. And the US will have to come to a grip with that reality sooner or later.
Hang Tua.
Good to see you.
China today asked for the real reason for the Connecticut collision with an underwater mountain. Is it credible?
That's what the one thing that the United States disclosed about this one here is that it was no nuclear material leak into that issue. So hard to believe, maybe true, maybe not. I do not know. All I know is that the fact that the nose of the missile, of the sub, did hit an object within close proximity for China, and it is within China's right to ask for clarification. You think of it this way. Hypothetically, as a Chinese submarine came to California near San Francisco, okay? And it hits an object. What do you think the United States is going to do or request from Chinese? They need to have an explanation. What happened? What were you doing there? And whether it was any nuclear, especially for a nuclear sub, you're going to have to be concerned about nuclear material being leaked. So far, the U.S. said that there was no leaks. It was a collision with some object. They didn't disclose what the object is. And I don't have the information to confirm whether it was a leak of a nuclear material or not. So,
well, as of this morning, the United States government said that the submarine ran into a mountain, and underwater mountain, of course. And with the technology that's available on these nuclear submarines, I think that the sub was $3 billion or something. They fired the captain saying, "This is so unacceptable." And you have to sit back and say, is this even credible? They ran into a mountain with that kind of technology?
Exactly.
or was something else going on that's not been divulged?
You're absolutely correct. And usually with this kind of information, because they are sensitive, the governments usually tends to keep a lid on those.
Ariel.
Here is Ariel. Good to see you, Ariel.
Why can space exploration being closer IRL like Netflix away instead of Apple's for all mankind?
That is a great question.
It's
Ariel.
the right question.
It is the right question, but you can just see that it's what's behind the scenes, especially from the U.S. part. The U.S. will have a hard time accepting now there is a new player in space. It's always been dominated by the Russians and the Americans, of course, for that. But the fact that, for example, China made the trip to Mars quickly, yes. To them is the speed by which China is moving into the space realm. But also when you consider how many they graduate every year regarding this engineering stuff, the US is having a hard time accepting that. So yes, it makes perfect sense for them to cooperate. Can you imagine how that will benefit all of us humans? But you got some entities, I am sure it exists in China as much as in Russia, as much as in the US. Behind the scenes, they won't want that because they are blinded by profit.
Yeah.
This is where it becomes when greed become the dictating factor by which to engage. You think the example, why are we engaging in so many conflicts?
Yeah.
Greed, because the more conflicts you have, the more weapons you sell, the more money you make. So the greed becomes the driving force. And now, do I hope that we come to cooperation in space? I would love to see that because that will benefit all of us. But it's unlikely.
YouTube user.
That's a nice name.
Yeah,
that's a nice screen name. Good to see you.
Is the U.S. government lying still to all Americans and the world about the economy, inflation, and the state of the country? Maybe in unison we could say, yes.
Yes, indeed. And once again, guys, just for your question and to all of you, we're going to have a conversation with a guest this afternoon that truly will answer this specific question. But for now, I feel comfortable to say yes, because that's what, and I look at it with the inflation numbers. You look at it with the, how many people are losing their jobs or even giving up on. It's almost like not the question, but here is the thing: that American dream. Maybe it's nothing but an illusion. Same the question with is democracy is nothing but an illusion.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Aristotle, some 2,000 years ago, warned about the danger of democracy. I'm not saying that democracy is bad. That is not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is the government, once the government realizes that its citizens are not well informed, it gives it the right opportunity or a right platform to do whatever he wants. You look at, for example, who gives the government the right to be tapping into citizens' phones without their consent? Or under what authority to do that? Who gives the government the right to dictate to you what to inject or not inject in your body? Who gives the government the right to allow, for example, the spread of pesticide on food that we consume?
Right.
I mean, but that becomes also the responsibility of the citizen to inform him or herself and take the necessary measures to ensure his or her well-being.
Absolutely right.
Because if you count on the government, you will get nowhere.
Pardon my pronunciation.
Alamak. Good to see you, Alamak.
Do you foresee the Fed will allow more, that is QE, print money in December 2021 after the U.S. government runs out of money? If so, do you think inflation will get more serious and affect the world economy?
That is a great question. Once again, and believe it or not, we do have that question for our guest this afternoon. Personally, and I am not an economist, but I understand the basics. I do see the government printing more. The reason being because, the Fed's meeting is thinking about thinking about increasing in interest rate. Well, how would you increase interest rate if you are going to plan on printing more money? I just don't see them doing the increase on interest because they are almost at zero.
Yeah.
But the question is to them, to the Feds, which, by the way, the Feds, the Federal Reserve, most Americans do not know that is not a government associated entity. The Feds is nothing but a cartel of banks that control the direction of the financial sector in the United States.
Right.
Most Americans have no clue. This is what shocks me the most. Why do Americans are just sleeping, not understanding? Have we ever audited the Feds?
Never.
No. Why not? An average citizen can be audited anytime. Anytime. Why not the Feds? Who do you think? Are they above the law? If we are to say we live in a democracy where everybody is equal under the law, so is the Feds.
Well, they certainly act like they're above the law.
Well, they are.
And they've gotten away with it for a long time now.
So the bottom line is that the idea of the printing, I do foresee it happening because they won't want to rock the boat right now, economically speaking, but also justifying, we need more stimulus to the economy. And yet, we all know the more you print, the weaker you make your currency.
And the higher the inflation goes.
Yeah. And that's because, once again, an average citizen does not, he or she's worrying about what's for dinner.
Or what's the outcome of the latest sporting event.
Exactly.
Or what's on
it's unfortunate.
What's on the boob tube.
All right. Sherry Kotawe.
When will U.S. citizens demand for defense budget to be moved to infrastructure, healthcare, and education? When you take a look at how the government's put together, how legislators are elected, and who actually funds them, we can't say it's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who teaches the government, and I teach courses on the government, the national and state, and the one thing that I want you to understand is that legislation is not written by members of Congress. Legislation is written by lobbyists. So whatever the lobbyist wants. That is why, for example, when I see in oil refineries here in the US, because energy lobbyists, both domestically and abroad, the lobbyists who lobby on behalf of some other countries overseas won't want that to happen. Because if you do build refineries here, you don't depend on foreign oil anymore. The government, regardless what you hear, the government is saying, what is the cost? It costs us so much to refine oil here versus buying it because it's cheaper. That's nonsense. It might be the case, but we think we are looking at a long term. Politicians in Washington tends to think short term, next quarter. So just why we don't see. You think about it. Look at how crumbling the subway system in the United States. You tell me, with all the wealth we have, we couldn't build speed train or bullet train, whatever you want to call them, that can connect New York to LA. But lobbyists won't allow it, and that's how corrupted the American system is. So, to average citizen, we're not gonna see the improvements on bridges, on roads, on hospitals, on education, and Russ, by the way, you're gonna do the show on healthcare and all that stuff down the road, and we'll talk about education also. So the short answer to your no, it's not gonna happen because lobbyists won't allow it. Steven, good to see you, Steven. I put a note for Steven yesterday, telling him about the live stream. So thank you for being here, Steven.
When is the show about the Thorium molten salt nuclear reactor? I don't know. Do we have it planned?
No, I do not know this one, Steven. We can look into it and research it and do a show on it. Why not?
Well, it looks very promising. I've been looking at it, and there might be some real hope in the next couple of decades that that's going to be clean energy.
Well, that would be nice to learn about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We will do that, Steven. We'll look into it.
Boon.
Here's Boone. That's another Boone.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's a different Boone.
Different Boone.
Okay.
Yeah. We have two.
What will the U.S. do now? Build a new space station?
No,
Can't.
no. The cost and here is the issue with the U.S. And I speak based on my opinion. U.S. credibility has suffered tremendously. The trust is gone. Who's going to want to partner with the United States? Yes, you might still have some European countries like UK. You might have countries like Australia. You might have countries like India, but that's about it. So I don't see the US building a new one because China's space station, which already they're going to be completed by next year, you're going to see more countries joining that venture over there than joining the US. So I just don't see, I don't see the US building a new one.
Deathless. Oh, what an interesting name.
That's a good one. Good to see
How
you.
significant is China's hypersonic missile test when even conventional ICBMs can defeat U.S. nuclear defense shield? Is the U.S. making something out of nothing?
Well, the short answer, that's something I know a little bit about regarding global security. That was part of my academic studies. The hypersonic, it's very concerning to the U.S. because they won't be able to defend against it. As a matter of fact, the defense shield we have in the South Pole, or in the North Pole rather, with this hypersonic, they won't be able to defend against it. And we're going to detail this more, not on this platform, of course, because there are some sensitive information pertaining to that. We're going to do that tomorrow for our members and also highlight the idea of why certain nuclear facilities in the United States were shut down by some outside entities, shall we say.
Village Idiot.
Village, good to see you. Same thing for Village, Ross. Yesterday I put the note and they are showing up here. So we thank you for being here.
We suspect you're not an idiot.
No. Yeah.
With the Russian-China de facto alliance, how will the United States handle this arms race and commitment crisis?
Well, that's an interesting one. In my last book, I wrote about Russia, Ross. I devoted a whole section about the possibilities of where China-Russia friendship, partnership, whatever you want to call it, is going to be going. And I do foresee it's going to be moving forward because of the shifting into the geopolitical landscape. The world realizing the United States does not want to admit it yet, as far as the world moving from a unipolar, in which the United States was the sole hegemony or the global power, whatever, now to move into a multipolar. China and Russia came to realize we better put our differences aside and join forces against the common enemy. Because they both, and we're not going to sugarcoat it, they both look at the US as an enemy, and that's how they perceive that. So where I do see them going, they're going to move forward. What I do not see at this point is whether they're going to move into a treaty of sorts. Because once you have a treaty, you sign I don't see that happening yet.
I saw Vladimir Putin do a presentation about the causes of World War I and the complicated treaties that actually led to that war, then what led to World War II, and so on. He seems disinclined to do treaties that are binding in terms of if somebody does something, we automatically go to war.
Yeah.
He seems very much disinclined to do that.
Yeah. And that's why I don't see China and Russia doing that. However, I do see the trend moving forward in ensuring that Russia and China prevent the US from being in that part of the world. That's where I see it going. Darjanet, good to see you.
What's your opinion regarding the American base in India?
Well, remember, India, and again, we're not pointing fingers at India, but US is using India as, we tell you to do this, you do that. Why? Because India wants always to be at the good graces of the United States. To me, I've always find it very unusual for a country like India to allocate its resources on issues that have nothing to do with the welfare of Indian people.
Yeah.
Why poverty is still rampant in India? I just ask a basic question. Why is that? So why India is going into this purchase of weapons more? I understand the argument with regarding Pakistan, but at the same time, when you have the level of poverty, it's going up. It doesn't make sense.
What we see is no national resolve, no national policy, even though they have examples across the border of a system that has started to alleviate poverty. It's when the world now knows it is possible, but you got to have the national resolve at the highest levels in the government to make it happen.
Yeah. To me, it became clear when India bowed down to the U.S. request for not purchasing oil from Iran. And right there, I figured, okay, India will never, ever stand on its feet. I know they are now regarding the purchase of the S-400 missile systems from Russia. They're going to sort of move forward, but the U.S. might not have any other option because they don't want to lose India as a partner. But India will be just used. Once the U.S. done with India, they'll done if they want to do that. So it's up to India how he wants to proceed.
Last question.
All right, last question here because we have to go prepare for that interview we're gonna do this afternoon. So.
Donna Peterson. Legislation is written by the lobbyists. Those in office are put there by those with money. How can this be called democracy?
That's a great statement, and this is the reality of it that most Americans do not understand. It's just that's how things work in Washington. A lot of Americans have no clue that even Congress itself is corrupted. You think about the members of Congress, the majority of them are millionaires. I'm not saying all of them are bad, but come on. You come to Congress all of a sudden and second, why are we having life term in Congress? Put a term limit on Congress. How great can you be? What can you do in 40 years that you couldn't do in 10? Put a term limit. You serve 5 terms for House of Representatives because each term is 2 years. 10 years is plenty. You serve 3 terms for senator because Senate is 6 years. 18 years is plenty, or even for that, I'll put 2 years, two terms, and that's it.
Right.
That means there are smart people out there in America. But the system is corrupted because the lobbyists are allowed. For every member of Congress, there are about 5 or 6 lobbyists.
That many?
They're a lot.
I didn't know that.
They're a lot.
That's outrageous.
They're a lot. And the amount of money that goes, look no further than the last presidential elections in the U.S. $2 billion from each party. Where that money came from? They used to call dark money. Well, this is thanks to the Supreme Court decision in 2010 about allowing that. Even the Supreme Court itself. Why do I have to have a judge that sits there for life?
Right.
To me, you're absolutely correct. What kind of democracy is this? But till people are educated and informed, nothing will change. Well, we hope you guys find this very interesting time to spend with us. Of course, we look forward to next Friday. And Friday will be here before we know it.
No show next Friday.
Huh?
Oh, we're figuring out whether.
Oh, yeah. We are not sure yet about next Friday. We'll let you know. So anything to add, Ross?
Well, I just want to thank you for watching. We'd like to inspire you to subscribe and...
Yeah, of course, you need to consider the subscription part because we need your help, guys. If you can help us move up those numbers as quickly as possible, we truly, truly appreciate it. And to our members, if you are a member watching this, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the presentation we do tomorrow at 1100 hours. So, and as always, stay informed. Till next time.